Hey, how's it going guys? Chris here with another Overwatch hero guide today, and in this video I'm going to be focusing on the tank character Reinhardt, going over those abilities in detail, giving tips on how to use them properly, and I'll be going over some of the general strategies to become a very useful team player. Being a tank character, Reinhardt's got quite a lot of HP, with 300 health and 200 armor, overall giving him a total of 500. This means that he can take a bit more flak than a lot of other heroes, especially when combined with some of his own abilities, which generally suit both passive and aggressive playstyles, but lean a little bit more towards being on the defensive side. Because of the high amount of damage he can withstand, combined with a fairly simple set of abilities, this gives Reinhardt a difficulty rating of 1 star. His attacks don't rely on too much accuracy to do well, and you won't need to worry about running out of health too much, providing you're playing carefully. So, as a bit of background info, Reinhardt is a German soldier stylized as a champion who lives in the knightly codes of valor, courage and justice. He was chosen as part of the original Overwatch strike team to put an end to the Omnic crisis once and for all. After working with Overwatch for the following years, supporting the organisation and helping to keep the peace around the world, he eventually had to retire from combat. As Overwatch became under suspicion of corruption, Reinhardt wasn't exactly thrilled, as he watched the very organisation he dedicated his life for collapse. And although Overwatch disbanded, he wanted to continue fighting for justice and prevent the world from falling into chaos. So he jumped back into his Crusader armour and got back into the action, defending civilians and protecting the innocent. Now, as for Reinhardt's abilities, the main weapon that you'll be using to cause most of your damage is a massive melee tool called the Rocket Hammer. This is pretty much exactly what it sounds. It's a big ass hammer with rockets on the back, giving it more momentum as it travels through the air. The hammer can deal a fairly high amount of damage per hit, with it taking 75 HP away from anyone caught within its 5 meter swing, meaning that you can usually kill most players in about 2 to 3 hits, and because of its wide arc, you'll be able to catch multiple enemies at once standing within the hammer's range. Although Reinhardt is a big target that's fairly easy to hit, and it might be tempting to keep within a defensive mindset, don't be afraid to swing away at an enemy close by, as you're going to knock out huge chunks of health, which will probably kill them. If your target manages to get away and out of the hammer's range, at least they'll be softened up, making them much easier for someone else to take out too. So it's often best to take advantage of that hammer whenever you can. Unlike the other heroes in the game, Reinhardt doesn't have a default quick melee attack, and relies solely on his hammer to do all the work. It might feel a tad slower when flying through the air than a standard punch from another character, but it's going to deal a lot more damage. Plus it's also got a longer range, making it a very strong attack in close quarters. Another thing to point out about the hammer is that down to the heavy momentum of the swing, you'll quite often knock back enemies and throw them around. To make them easier to take out, giving them less chance to escape, try hitting them against walls and into corners to prevent them from being smacked out of the hammer's range, and away from your follow-up strike. You could also use this knockback effect to your advantage to push players off nearby ledges into bottomless pits, if you can time the swing and aim correctly. Reinhardt's main defensive ability that's going to help your team out big time is the barrier field. And this is a broad, forwards facing energy barrier which can absorb tons of damage from hostile players, absorbing and blocking most enemy bullets and projectiles, all whilst allowing your allies to fire back through the shield to attack enemies in front of it. The shield can absorb 2000 damage before it's destroyed, though it can be restored by 225 HP per second if not in use for 2 seconds, though once it has been destroyed you'll have to wait 5 seconds again to reuse it. Activating the barrier slows down Reinhardt's movement speed and puts you into a third-person viewing mode, giving you a better look of your environment and letting you spot targets trying to flank you a bit easier. Damage can still be dealt from behind, and most opponents will try to get around the barrier to kill you and your team, so be aware of this, watch out for players moving around side routes, and keep your eye on anyone trying to get around that shield. The barrier field in general is a great ability to support your team and block incoming damage, protecting yourself and your teammates behind it. Use it often and whenever you can to save your allies and allow them to move through an open area without taking damage. It's very effective when attacking objectives, as you can walk alongside the payload, moving it along with your teammates behind, blocking damage and gaining back any lost health from the payload at the same time. Plus it's also useful when defending too, to create a safety zone for allies to both retreat to and attack from when taking on advancing enemies. Whatever the situation though, it's usually best to be at the front nearby to the objective, so that your team can benefit from that barrier's protection. Just be aware of the amount of health it has, and retreat whenever it's running low, to gain that lost health back again. Also, watch out for Symmetra's Photon Projector and Winston's Tesla Cannon, as the barrier won't block these abilities and you can be damaged by them. Another more offensive ability that you can use when attacking targets further away is the Fire Strike, and this is Reinhardt's main way of dealing any ranged damage. He flings a flaming projectile forwards using the hammer, dealing 100 damage to anyone it hits. So it's quite powerful and can take out players with low amounts of health pretty quickly, taking 6 seconds to cool down before you'll be able to use it again. An interesting thing about the Fire Strike is that it can actually travel right the way through other barriers and shields, plus it also passes through enemies too. And if aimed correctly, you can hit multiple opponents travelling in a straight line, as the strike will only end once it reaches a solid surface, and this can be done easier in narrow corridors and small rooms within a map. The Fire Strike travels over a long range, and although its velocity is fairly slow through the air, often making it quite tricky to hit people, on stationary targets like Bastion in sentry form and Torbjorn's turrets, it can be very effective. Not only is it useful at long ranges, but it's also good to be used on escaping enemies that are running away from your hammer's strikes. It deals more damage than the hammer and can be much easier to land at close range too. So make full use of this power and combine your hammer swings with the Fire Strike to inflict more damage on your targets close by. Its cooldown is fairly quick, so missing your target isn't exactly the end of the world. The Fire Strike will also cancel the hammer animation mid-swing, so once you've hit a player close by with the hammer, activating that Fire Strike straight after your hammer makes contact will allow you to deal a lot more damage very quickly, and kill some of the faster moving heroes in the game more easily. Now, as for Reinhardt's Chargeability, activating this causes him to propel forwards quickly, allowing him to travel across open areas faster, and also lets him heavily damage enemies caught within his line of travel. You can't turn much while charging, but if you can manage to time it right and hit another player, you'll deal 50 damage for making contact with them, and an extra 300 whenever you crush them against the wall. And this basically means that you'll have the ability to kill almost anyone apart from other tank heroes in one swift move, making the Chargeability a very deadly one to use. He won't charge forever though, and he will stop at round about 50 meters, though most of the time you'll hit a wall, pinning and killing the target caught within your grasp. Although you move forwards a lot quicker than normal, he can still be a fairly easy target to avoid if someone sees you coming. You won't be able to turn very much as you travel, and for this reason, it's better using the charge in shorter to medium ranges to catch enemies off guard and prevent them from avoiding your attack. It can often be a good way to reach objectives and escape from battle quickly too. Just be aware of any bottomless pits, as you can't stop yourself while shooting forwards, and you can sometimes end up flying into them if you're not careful. As for Reinhardt's ultimate ability, you'll be able to use Earth Shatter, which basically lets you slam that hammer down into the ground, temporarily stunning anyone in front for 2.5 seconds. It only deals 50 damage, but the dazed enemies can be quickly finished off with your other abilities and other teammates. Multiple targets can be hit with the Earth Shatter, and can be all damaged with that swinging hammer afterwards, if they're all close by to each other. If not, you can set yourself up with an easy kill by using the Chargeability on a stunned opponent. Just make sure your enemies are in clear line of sight when used, and not too far away, as the ability won't affect anyone who manages to reach cover or hide behind a wall, so keep this in mind and use it in an open space to maximise your chances of hitting them. So overall, Reinhardt is one of the sturdiest characters in Overwatch, and can absorb tons of damage, protecting himself and his team. He's got more of a passive aggressive playstyle, as you'll have to play defensively most of the time, but burst out every now and then to inflict high damage to anyone who wanders close by. He works best as a team player, aiding allies in combat rather than doing all the killing himself, but if anyone strays too close, he's got more than enough power to take them on and put them out of action, allowing him to work well in most situations. So that's just about it for this one guys, thanks for watching. If you found the guide useful, drop us a like and subscribe to see loads more. Take it easy and I'll see you in the next one.